Hello, my bike nerding friends. We are here. It's a cold Sunday afternoon at the beginning of March in Cochrane, Alberta, Canada. So instead of me being out fat biking or something, I am going to film another video. And today's video is about the 2024 Marin Presidio 3. The Presidio has existed for a few years, and this is, I believe, the first year that it's actually undergone some noticeable changes in the actual frame. So we're looking forward to looking at that for a detail. A previous criticism of this Presidio 3 for me was that the tire size was too limited with the old frame and fork just not having enough tire room, and that is one of the highlights on this Presidio 3. This is also a bike well known for its Gates drive. And so that is going to be part of our discussion on this bike. Before I forget to mention it, this bike is 28.5 pounds, a 2024 Marin Presidio 3. It is $1,469 in Canada or $1,099 in the United States of America. This is one of 3 different Presidios that Marin makes. The cheapest is a $699 Canadian bike with a 1x8 pretty simple regular drivetrain on there. And then at $1,149 there is also still a chain-driven 7-speed internal hubbed bike. But this one, the Presidio 3, has a Gates drive and a Nexus 8-speed drivetrain, and I am about to show you a whole bunch of details and talk about those details with you. If you're new to one of these Bike Bros videos, I apologize. I am officially the most boring person on the internet, and I am about to bore you talking about bikes. But if you are a bike geek and you like listening to somebody with 40-something years or 40-ish years of experience in bike shops, I am more than happy to talk to you. I like to treat these videos as if I had a customer in my shop in Bike Bros in Cochrane, Alberta, Canada, and if they were asking me questions about the bike, and if they were really interested, what would I tell them? So that is what these videos do. If you like that idea, try subscribing, like the video, all that sort of stuff. And I don't know what that does for me. It makes the algorithm happy. Anyways, we're about to take a closer look at the 2024 Marin Presidio 3. So on the Marin website, they talk about this being the ultimate commuter. And I would say that that is probably close, especially ultimate considering the price. One of the main things about this bike that makes it stand out, especially for its price, but just in general, is the fact that it doesn't have a standard bicycle chain. It is using a Gates carbon belt drive. The idea behind this belt drive is a few things. It is quiet, it requires less maintenance, and it works hand in hand with using an internal geared hub, the way this could have with a chain on there as well, and that a belt drive like this, a Gates carbon belt drive, is reported to have about twice the lifespan of a traditional chain-driven style drivetrain. I can't even speak English today. So people often ask, why aren't there more of these bikes? Or when they do see them, they wonder about the price. And so there's a couple things that need to be described here. To make a bike belt drive compatible, because we don't have a chain that we can break a link and actually make the chain 2 pieces to mount it on the bike, anytime you see a bike with a Gates drive, it means that somewhere in the back of the bike here, there is actually a part that can be disconnected to create a little bit of a gap for the drivetrain or the drive to be slid through the frame. So as we look at the details on this dropout here, there is a bolt at the back of where I just had my fingers. And what happens is behind here, there are bolts you can undo, break the frame, open it up just enough that you can get that guy in there. Hand in hand with that, it is extremely important on these Gates drive bikes that the tension in this thing is in the range that Gates suggests. So that means that we also need slider dropouts here. So these two Allen keys here, and or Allen key bolts. There's a matching set on the other side. Those allow the rear dropouts to actually be slid back and forth to get you perfect tension on your gates drive. So if you look at this and you wonder, why don't I see this more often? It is because it is not directly just switchable with a chain drive bike. Your frame has to be built specifically around a gates drive, and those things that make that slidable, and to have your brake mount over there that is also going to slide with that, that takes special design and a little bit of extra money. So now that you've seen that, I'll just cover a couple more of the details. One of my favorite things about this new Presidio, and I'm excited to see this, is the fact that this tire on here is a 40C tire. Marin even says that this thing can officially take a 45C tire, and I wouldn't be surprised if you could maybe fit a little bit bigger. So it's a 700 by 40C stock. That 40C, when we're looking at that, that is basically looking at this width. That means it's roughly 40 millimeters wide if we put calipers on here. And then the fact that we can go up to 45 officially, and then in this 40C size, we can take advantage of things like that little nubbin right there. That is a fender mount. We have threaded fender mounts both here and here, so you can put pannier and fender on here. And then down below, right in there, there is also another fender mount. So with the fenders, Marin officially says that this is the largest tire size. Without fenders, you can go another half a centimeter or 5 millimeters wider than what we see here. The drivetrain on this bike is a Nexus 8-speed. So Nexus is a Shimano system. It's a Nexus 8-speed. An interesting thing that they've done on here, because Nexus is, I believe, usually done with a grip shift style shifter. They've gone with a micro shift shifter on here, so we get a nice trigger style shifter with a push button to go into an easier gear, and then a little lever on the front that takes you into a harder gear. So I like that more so than having grip shift on there. Going to the back, those rims that 40C tire are mounted on, once again 700C, same rim size as a 29er wheel size. Those are 25 millimeters internal, so the rims are, I believe, wider than the previous version of this frame. Looking at other details, we have another set of mounts just below the seat collar. That is going to be a pannier mount, a 27.2 alloy seat post, a stock Marin saddle. It is an alloy frame on here and an alloy fork. Standard things like water bottle mounts on the down tube and on the seat tube. These cranks are made by Gates. Depending on the size of the frame that you get, they'll be either 170 or 175 millimeter in length. Your bottom bracket in here is a standard cartridge style square taper bottom bracket. That, looking down there at that elongated slot, if you really wanted to have the joy of having a kickstand on your bike, it has room for that as well. Now, just a little bit of stuff about this bike compared to the old version. It has been updated in more ways than just being able to put wide tires on here. I think I mentioned it's 28.5 pounds. If I didn't, it's 28.5 pounds. This new version has a 2-degree slacker head tube angle. It is now 70.5 degrees. And then as part of the frame changes, they also, to put down my notes here, they also increased this distance here for each frame size. So basically the frame has gotten longer, and that allows them to, by spec at least, run 70 mil long stems on all of the different sizes. Funnily enough, I go and I look at the Marin website, I look at the information that we're given by Marin when we're ordering the bikes to try and get an idea of what spec is supposed to be. I believe them on the geometry, the fact that that has changed, because it seems just sitting on it that it's a bit more spacious than the previous. As I mentioned, that stem is supposed to be 70 millimeters on all the bikes. It is actually 85 millimeters long, so they're probably just clearing out some stuff from their manufacturing facility, and that is kind of the world we live in with bikes, is that manufacturers just decide to switch out parts when they feel like it. Speaking of spec not matching the online thing, this is another case. When I first ordered these bikes, because I ordered them, I believe, in June last year, and so that was when I saw the first, we just joke about them being Etch-a-Sketch pictures of the bikes, and I'm pretty sure I remembered that this tire was supposed to be a bigger diameter tire, something like it is now, a 40C. The specs online officially say that this tire is a 32C tire, so I am happy to see that they actually put the larger tire on. What it means to you having a 40C versus a 32C is that you're still going to have just as fast a rolling a tire. You can ride your tire just a touch softer, and you're just going to have a little bit of a smoother ride and a little bit less chance of actually, like if you hit a curb cut or something, a little bit less chance you're going to dent a rim or something like that. And then the fact that you can go up to 45C, especially compared to the very limited frame width at the back on the previous version, that I think allows you to use this bike maybe beyond just being the ultimate commuter that it is marketed as. I think this bike, with that largest size of tire, could perhaps be a decent sort of, I wouldn't go as far as calling it a bike packing bike, but a rugged touring bike that does see some capability beyond just paved roads with the kind of build that it has. Going back to these details, we have a straight head tube on here, so not tapered. This fork material is alloy. We have one mounting spot down here, so this would likely be for some sort of a lowrider rack that you could mount off there. We also have the hole in the crown of the fork here and some threaded bosses behind the front axle. So that is allowing us room that we could put a fender on this bike. Handlebars are pretty narrow. I believe they're 640 millimeters. Depending on the use that this bike was going to get, you might want to either put on wider bars, put on bars with a bit more rise, something like that. But that starts to get into personal preferences. I can't say that these are bad width of handlebars, but just that some people might feel more comfortable with a wider bar, while other people who actually ride in congested pathway systems or on the road in traffic would probably like the fact that their bars aren't crazy wide. Back on the bars, they are nice enough to put these ergon-ish style comfortable grips on here with the extra pad to sort of give us padding just under our hand. And as a nice feature, the grips are actually a lock-on grip. So a lot of these, if they're just a friction fit with this wing that sticks out for comfort, from the weight of your hand being on there, you'll find that those will want to rotate around over time. But because that is actually locked on, we actually have a mechanical fastening holding that grip in position. So this is the Presidio 3. If you're wondering about the Gates drive system, I would say we have heard quite a lot of positive feedback, both from the video I did on the previous version of this bike, and then also from customers who have bought Presidio 3s from us, and they really like the no fuss kind of nature of this sort of a drivetrain. So for us, riding in kind of gross slushy conditions in the winter, something like a Gates belt is a nice option, that you aren't just grinding yuck that wants to corrode chains into your drivetrain. You can basically just wash off this Gates drive with some water. I will point out, we've seen, I think over the last 5 years, 2 of these belts actually break on a bike. So while I still believe in the system working really well, I wouldn't say that I would feel comfortable marketing it as indestructible. So I just want to be honest with people. If we ever see issues with bikes, we tell people about it. If it's ever an issue that concerns us enough, we just stop selling that bike or that particular part. And that's sort of what we feel our job as bicycle retailers should be, is that if we find out something is crap, we stop selling it and tell people that it is crap. I'm just going to go back to a couple details. This is the new Marin Oso nylon pedal. For being a stock nylon composite style pedal, The bearings actually feel relatively smooth, and these pins seem large enough that for an urban setting, it's actually a reasonable pedal. So while I often will recommend to people, if a bike comes with cheap composite, what I call test rider pedals, is that you would want to replace them. In this case, not a bad pedal. This thing, of course, it's got the Gates drive to get you moving. I should mention it's got these Shimano hydraulic discs on here to stop you from moving. A nice long lever design. You can slide these in if you want to just have nice two-finger braking, but these Shimano brakes tend to have a nice feel and are more than adequate for the kind of job that is required to slow down a commuting bike like this. And of course, being a hydraulic brake system, just having hydraulic hoses instead of cables just means that there's one less system that riding through really gross slushy conditions is really going to affect any cables, so you're not going to have issues with these hydraulic brakes. So that's the gist of it. Marin is based in California, we're based in Canada. This bike seems to me more of a really logical choice for us Canadians. I don't understand why it would be that applicable in the States, but up here where we get anything from rain to slush to sleet to everything in between, this Gates drivetrain system has proven to be quite popular and quite durable for Canadian winter riding. So that's the 2024 Marin Presidio 3. It is a bike that we're a fan of. We're excited to see it. It's the beginning of March 2024 and these just showed up and now you have a video. Ta-da! You're still here. Thank you. And if you're actually still here, then probably like and subscribe because you are a nerd. I just wanted to, I realized that I didn't talk about it much. As I mentioned, the fact that these frames are a little bit longer in this reach measurement, and the fact that this head tube angle is now a little bit slacker. I just wanted to mention one thing about that, and that is that this bike has a pretty good amount of growth in its overall wheelbase for the same size. And with that slacker head tube angle, what you're going to find with this bike is that it's probably a little bit more relaxed, cruisy, stable handling. So for anybody who has actually ridden the old version of this, or in general just been on a 10-year-old bike, I think you might actually like the ride characteristics of this sort of a bike. To my mind, it's one of those changes that really just makes you feel that much more comfortable going faster, especially if you do get into a little bit bumpier terrain or anything like that. So I just wanted to mention that rather than just mentioning that there were changes, just to tell you what those changes actually mean. We get a little bit of a bigger triangle here on the same size frame. That might help you to get different bags into these bikes if you're using it for a little bit of a longer commute or anything like that. But mostly it is about that handling and the fact that this is going to be more stable, a little bit less twitchy, and I believe that most people will appreciate that combination of less twitchiness, and those bigger tires are going to make this a more confidence-inspiring ride and a more fun ride. So that was just my little addendum as I was thinking about what I talked about. That is the end now.